Stephen has been canceled for purely financial reasons.
After last week's news that The Late Show with Stephen Colbert is coming to an end in May 2026, both Jon Stewart and Jimmy Fallon addressed the show's cancellation Monday night on their respective programs.
For 2 decades, Jon Stewart wasn't just a late-night host. He was the sharpest scalpel in American satire, a voice that cut through political noise, corporate spin, and media chaos with a kind of clarity nobody else could replicate. So when he walked away from The Daily Show in 2015, it felt like the end of an era. People assumed he had said everything he needed to say, but Jon Stewart is one of those figures who never truly leaves the stage. He just waits until the world gets loud enough that he can't stay silent, and that's exactly what happened. After nearly a decade away, out of nowhere, Stewart reappeared on The Daily Show in February 2024, one night a week every Monday, like a returning general surveying a battlefield he once commanded. It was supposed to be temporary, just until the 2024 election cycle wrapped, but then the election came and went, and Stewart didn't. Comedy Central quietly announced he was staying through 2025, and then, during an appearance at the New Yorker Festival in late 2025, Stewart revealed the real twist. He wanted to stay even longer.
The unretirement kind of works in your favor?
For a little bit.
Yeah. How long is a little bit? How long?
I have no idea. We're having fun right now, though.
Yeah.
Now we know the ink is dry for Jon Stewart to continue his reign hosting The Daily Show every Monday through December of 2026.
He was working on staying, negotiating to remain the face of the franchise again. But behind that announcement, behind the standing ovations and the nostalgia, was a much darker, more complicated reason Jon Stewart returned, and why his last show before this one was canceled so abruptly. Between 2021 and 2023, Jon Stewart tried something new. Apple TV Plus gave him a sleek studio, a massive budget, and full creative control over a new project. The problem with Jon Stewart: it wasn't comedy, it wasn't satire, it was deep dive journalism with jokes sprinkled in. An attempt to mix entertainment with uncomfortable truth. Each episode focused on a single issue: climate change, gun violence, the prison system, veterans' health, big tech, topics most networks prefer to touch with gloves on, if they touch them at all. And Stewart pushed it harder, sharper, and more directly than Apple expected.
Jon Stewart's Apple TV show The Problem with Jon Stewart has been abruptly canceled. American host, writer, comedian, and political commentator Jon Stewart apparently got into a disagreement with Apple over multiple segments the show wanted to run. Stewart signing on to Apple TV to make The Problem was a big deal, as Stewart previously hosted The Daily Show and was returning from a 6-year hiatus.
That became a problem. In 2023, the show suddenly ended. No long farewell, no grand finale, no final episode to tie things together. Just silence, and then cancellation. And when Stewart finally spoke about it, he made the reason painfully clear. Apple didn't cancel the show because of ratings. Apple canceled it because they didn't want him saying things that might get him in trouble. Those were Stewart's exact words. And coming from him, a man who built a career out of poking holes in powerful institutions, that statement landed like a shot across the entertainment industry. He didn't say which topics crossed the line. He didn't say which companies or executives pushed back, but everyone knew Apple is one of the most politically cautious corporations in the world, and Stewart was touching subjects that made political donors and major partners nervous. Stewart wanted the freedom to tell the truth. Apple wanted the safety of silence. And in that gap, the show died. So why return to The Daily Show? Why step back onto a platform he once walked away from? Because Comedy Central, a network that has been struggling to stay alive, needed him. In a landscape where late night is collapsing, budgets are shrinking, and even The Late Show with Stephen Colbert is scheduled to end in 2026, Stewart became one of the last anchors holding the genre together, and he knew it. On his own podcast, he didn't sugarcoat it. He said, "Without The Daily Show, Comedy Central is kind of like Muzak at this point. We're the only life left other than South Park." It wasn't arrogance, it was the truth. Comedy Central had lost Key and Peele, Broad City, Inside Amy Schumer, Colbert Report, and almost just everything else that once defined it. Stewart understood that by coming back, even one night a week, he became the network's last remaining heartbeat, and that gave him leverage, creative freedom, a platform with nothing left to lose. Comedy Central needed him, which meant they were far less likely to silence him. But the question hovering over Stewart right now isn't whether he wants to stay. He already made that clear. He's working on staying, renegotiating beyond his current contract ending in December. The real question is whether the industry around him can survive long enough. Late night television is collapsing under financial pressure. Streaming is killing traditional ratings. CBS already announced the end of The Late Show. Conan O'Brien is predicting the entire genre will disappear. Paramount, the company that owns Comedy Central, is bleeding money and restructuring everything. Jon Stewart, in many ways, is one of the last people holding an entire format together, and the irony is brutal. His Apple TV Plus show was canceled because he was too bold. His Comedy Central show survives because it needs his boldness to stay alive. It's the rare moment where corporate necessity and creative freedom align, and Stewart knows that window won't stay open forever. So why was Jon Stewart's previous show canceled? Not because it failed, but because he told the truth in places where truth makes billion-dollar companies uncomfortable. And why is The Daily Show still alive? Because in a collapsing late-night landscape, Stewart is one of the few voices powerful enough to keep it breathing. That's the real story. A comedian navigating the thin line between what networks allow and what audiences need. And right now, Jon Stewart is choosing the place that lets him speak loudly, freely, and without fear.
On Comedy Central's The Daily Show, which shares a parent company with The Late Show, Paramount Global, Stewart broke his silence about CBS abruptly announcing an end date to his friend and former colleague Colbert's top-rated show. First, he acknowledged that the show was losing money.
Late night TV is a struggling financial model. We're all basically operating a Blockbuster kiosk inside of a Tower Records.
He went on to say, the fact that CBS didn't try to save their #1 rated late-night franchise that's been on the air for over 3 decades is part of what's making everybody wonder.
Was this purely financial? Or maybe the path of least resistance for your $8 billion merger?
Stewart then specifically called out President Donald Trump.
Was killing a show that you know rankled a fragile and vengeful president so insecure.
But Stewart didn't stop there.
I believe CBS lost the benefit of the doubt 2 weeks prior when they sold out their flagship news program to pay an extortion fee to said president.
Over on NBC's The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, the host kicked off his Monday night show like this.
I am your host, well, at least for tonight. I don't like it. I don't like what's going on one bit. These are crazy times.
Fallon went on to directly address the cancellation of Colbert's show and say this.
And many people are now threatening to boycott the network. Yep. CBS could lose millions of viewers plus tens of hundreds watching on Paramount Plus.
He also shouted out the years of, quote, incredibly smart and hilarious television Colbert had made,